In the New Testament, the kingdom of God is, without a doubt, the center of Jesus' proclamation. Every sermon he preached, every miracle he performed, every action he undertook were all meant to elucidate or evoke the kingdom of God. Now, of course, by kingdom of God, the New Testament means the reign of God. That is, the kingdom is more project than place, more rule than region. Anywhere God is king is the kingdom of God. But of course, it doesn't take much perception to notice that in much of the present world, God is not recognized as king. Now, that doesn't mean that God is not king. It just means that he's not recognized as such. God is king with or without our consent. But even here, even now, there are those who do, in fact, recognize God as king. And their lives, their values, their priorities, their agenda are all informed by that recognition. To be sure, living that way in the world, where God is not recognized as sovereign, makes those who live as though he is seem strange, odd, out of place, even somewhat alien in the world. That is why New Testament scholars such as John Drain referred to the kingdom of God as an alternative society in the midst of a dominant society. And that gets at the heart of the kingdom of God in biblical perspective. It is a society of people who have caught sight of an alternative reality and who choose to live their lives in this world as citizens of another world. This alternative society gathers locally into groups the New Testament calls church, from the Greek ekklesia, meaning the called out. Do you hear the idea of election in there? Who also have caught sight of this alternative reality and who consequently feel odd and strange and alien in this world. These groups form communities of the called out, who, though still in this world, live as though they are citizens of the alternative world where God is sovereign. That is, the kingdom of God. And so the church, in biblical perspective, is a story-formed, read gospel, community of persons who have been grasped by a vision of another world Jesus called the kingdom of God, which is forming those persons, even while they yet remain in this world, to be citizens of the kingdom rather than citizens of the world. In a very real sense, these communities form a kind of kingdom enclave, to use Will Williman's phrase, or perhaps even better, a kind of kingdom embassy, to use Tony Evans' apt phrase. That is, in the same way an American embassy is a little piece of America in a strange and foreign land, so also is the church, a little piece of the kingdom of God in a place where God is not recognized as king. And so while there are multiple images that capture what the church is, here is a good one. The church is a kingdom embassy, a little piece of the kingdom of God in a strange and alien land. And that understanding informs the New Testament vision of the church, its identity, its vision, its values, its mission, its agenda. From preaching to worship, to evangelism, to missions, to pastoral care, to leadership, to Christian education, everything the church does should be informed by that vision of its identity and mission. We are an embassy of the kingdom of God, trying to replicate the kingdom on foreign, often hostile soil. This is critical to the church's mission and ministry. For example, how can you know what preaching looks like in the church if you're unclear about what the church is? How can you know what leadership looks like in the church if you don't know what the church is? We must get this right before moving on to anything else in the life and work of the church. Who said theology wasn't practical? Till next time, take care. God bless.